On Saturday, April 7th, the day marking the 44th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., hundreds of students from Howard University and various activist organizations marched from Malcolm X Park to Freedom Plaza in downtown Washington, D.C. The demonstrators used this day of remembrance as a call for justice for Trayvon Martin, whose killer has yet to be charged with a crime. It was announced that the grand jury that was previously scheduled to meet on Tuesday, April 10th, will not be called forth to decide the fate of George Zimmerman, the 28-year-old Florida resident who shot and killed Martin. The newly appointed state's attorney, Angela Corey, will be solely responsible for determining whether any charges will be brought against Zimmerman. The state attorney's office released a statement saying that the decision should not be considered a factor in the final determination of the case. Sheikah, who was present during the protests, describes the advantage that she feels white citizens are allotted solely based on the color of their skin.
The fact that Zimmerman is still free is a reflection of the fact that white people are allotted an unbelievable level of privilege in this country. I mean, Trayvon Martin's largest crime and the biggest crime of most men of color is being a man of color in America. And it should not be that way, but that is the reality of the situation. When the people who have power aren't defending our rights and our justice, then we will. And that this proves that.
Ray Baker, who hosted the rally after the march on Saturday, describes the larger trends of violence towards black men in America and how Trayvon Martin's murder should not be viewed or treated as an isolated incident, but rather a symptom of the larger problem of institutional racism within America.
I think Trayvon Martin is indicative of the institution. I don't think that we should look at Trayvon as an isolated incident. Trayvon is just but one. We can think of Oscar Grant. We can think of Kenneth Chamberlain. We can think of the older man up in Chicago right now. So there are a plethora of instances in which people of African descent, particularly men of African descent, are shot and killed at the hands of institutions, be they neighborhood watch, police officers, security guards, metro transit officers, and there seems to be no justice for that. However, if a man of African descent shoots and kills someone else, it seems to be swift and punishable justice because of that. So I want us to look at Trayvon as an aggregate as opposed to an individual case.
The murder of Dr. King over 44 years ago sparked one of the most violent and destructive reactions from black communities in this country. The recent findings in relationship to the case have sparked national action not only from organizers and activists, but also some extremists. 2 Oklahoma men were arrested for allegedly shooting 5 black men as they went on a rampage in Tulsa. 3 of the men assaulted were killed, and the other 2 were later released from the hospital. And in Sanford, Florida, the city where Trayvon Martin was killed, an armed right-wing militia of white nationalist citizens who are a part of the National Socialist Movement have stated that they are prepared to protect themselves against a possible race riot. This comes as a response to the new Black Panthers' call for a citizen's arrest of George Zimmerman, for which they have offered a $10,000 reward. Though all of the demonstrations that have taken place nationally have been peaceful, the city of Sanford is preparing for backlash from citizens before the state attorney decides whether Zimmerman will be prosecuted. They have called in extra forces and are working with other cities to devise a plan to deal with possible outbreaks of violence. Howard University student organizers Corinne Freeman and Lauren Banks explain why they helped to coordinate the demonstrations and what they are fighting for.
Trayvon Martin fits into the larger context of America, obviously, because he's an African-American citizen of the U.S. The case itself is directly connected with the justice system and the problems that we have here in the U.S. as far as the justice system. And in this case, unlike many others, exposes it with a sufficient evidence and the world can see it, and that's the difference between other cases where your mom, your dad, or the people around it might know what happens, but there isn't the phone calls and the other witnesses and etc. So
Yeah, what happened to Trayvon Martin is the other side of the American coin. It's the side that you don't want to talk about. It's the side that America tries to pretend does not exist. So I think that what happened to Trayvon Martin is a blatant exposure of the other side of that coin. And you can't even hide it. You can't deny it because everybody's looking at it and we're waiting to hear an explanation. Right. So what we're trying to do is combat the structural issues that we're having. So we want to combat, like, the Sanford Police Department. We need them to be gutted. We need them to have a complete change of heart. I was able to go down to Sanford, and Sanford needs a full-time government. They don't have a full-time city government down there. And I think because of that, that gives Sanford Police Department free range to do pretty much whatever they want. And just look at our own justice systems in our own individual towns, because there are Trayvon Martins everywhere, all across America.
The state's attorney will decide whether to prosecute Zimmerman in the coming days. The verdict could be the trigger for the Black marginalized communities who feel that they are not fairly represented or protected, but rather profiled and abused by those in power, to act in whatever ways they see fit. This is Megan Sherman reporting with the Real News Network.